I want to be honest with you. I did not want to do this episode, nor any other episode for that matter. The things that have happened in the past few months have been slowly eating into the little resolve that I have left. But the things that have happened in the past 2 weeks, those have really hit hard. I'm recording this on the 15th of October 2023. And 2 days ago, Gerima Panzure, one of Zimbabwe's shining lights in the world of music, passed away from injuries sustained in a car accident. It's reported that the accident also claimed at least 2 other lives. Earlier in the week, there was another fatal accident, this time in Harare. It involved 2 students from St. George's College and a truck driver. Again, the issue of emergency medical services came up. I cite these 2 examples, but they are not the only cases of fatal accidents in the past week. They are not. But instead of debating laws that would improve our health sector, instead of debating laws that make it impossible for health service providers to ask for $3,000 in the middle of a medical emergency, instead of lobbying for funding that would bring our roads up to code, instead of coming up with stricter traffic rules and regulations, instead of being allowed to do that and more, our parliament is being held hostage by individuals that believe they have a better use for it. And best believe what they want to use it for has absolutely nothing to do with the greater good. It's all about self-advancement. It's all about greed. I don't know how long I can keep this up. I honestly don't know how long I can stay optimistic about Zimbabwe's future. I really don't know. Because with each passing week, I can feel my resolve getting weaker. But I know that today is not the day. Today is not the day that I give up on my country. And because I can't give up, I'm not going to let you give up either. So gather around. Let's get comfortable. Because we need to put our heads together and figure out how we can save our parliament. Ladies and gentlemen, war vets and unfocused youth, welcome to another episode of Properganda with Kandoro. It's not often that you hear a politician's name and you go, who? Then you go on to Google their name and you still say, who? This has been the case with Sengezo Chabangu, Brasengs. But what an entrance. I'll give him that. What an entrance. This man just came from nowhere and started spraying bullets everywhere. Sengezo Chabangu is the man claiming to be the interim Secretary General of the CCC. And as such, he wrote a letter to the Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Jacob Mudenda, recalling 15 CCC MPs. The leader of said party, Nelson Chamisa, then wrote to the same Speaker of Parliament asking him to disregard any such communications that did not come directly from his office. For the avoidance of doubt, Mr. Chamisa also wrote that the position of Secretary General did not exist in his party. Under normal circumstances, this would have been the end of the whole debacle. The Speaker would have been compelled to simply ignore any prior communication. Right? Wrong. In my short life as a Zimbabwean, one of the most important things that I've learned is that Noma and Zimbabwe, you're asking for a lot. Mr. Chabangu doubled down. He wrote another letter claiming to have expelled Mr. Chamisa from the party. He alleged a litany of crimes, including but not limited to embezzlement of party funds and turning the party into a personal project. Did I mention that this letter expelling Chamisa used the letterhead with Chamisa's face in the... Chamisa then responded by pulling all his legislators from parliament and cancelled business until a resolution had been reached. He also gave a 14-day deadline. I don't know, Kuti. What is this? What day is it?
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
In Zimbabwe, much like every other republic, there are three arms of state. You have the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. The parliament makes the laws, the executive administers the laws, and the judiciary interprets and applies the laws. On paper, these three arms of government are equal. But we all know on paper means absolutely nothing to our Zimbabwe. Do you remember the time we tried to turn paper into a currency? The Parliament of Zimbabwe is bicameral, which means it's a legislative body with two chambers. You have the House of Assembly and the Senate. Our constitution provides for the election of 360 members of parliament, 80 Senate members, and 280 National Assembly members. A total of 210 members are elected via ballot from Zimbabwe's 210 constituencies. An additional 70 members are elected through a system of proportional representation to fill up the women and the youth quota. Our constitution doesn't stop there. Section 129 of the constitution then goes on to clearly articulate the how, the why, and the when an MP can lose their seat. It's a very comprehensive list. But there's a subsection that we have come to know almost by heart. This is the section that states that a political party can declare that a member has resigned from the party, therefore should be expelled from parliament. The thinking behind this is that once a member has been expelled from the party, they no longer represent the wishes of the party. Again, it makes sense on paper. The issue of parliamentary recalls is not new. Back in 2015, Madzimure and 21 other members of parliament were recalled. The Tsvangirai-led MDC argued that they had ceased to be members of the party when they formed a splinter faction which they dubbed MDC Renewal. 2015 was also the year that Baba 2000, Themba Mliso, and Didmas Mtasa were expelled from ZANU-PF. They were accused of being part of the Mujuru cabal, and they were recalled in the same manner. In 2018, that's when things started hotting up. Thokozani Kupe was first on the chopping block after she was deemed persona non grata by the MDCT. Once he had tested blood, Baba Beda turned into Dracula. He couldn't be stopped. He started recalling everyone in the Ambuya. Chijoka, pick two. No luck card, no pick and play. Chimwe Chijoka. He recalled everyone. I'm guessing Brasengs has a poster of Baba Beta somewhere in his house where each night he promises to succeed where his idol failed. There has been so many theories as to why we are being subjected to this parliamentary chaos. Many believe this is ZANU-PF's way of achieving a 2/3 majority in parliament again for the sole purpose of extending presidential term limits. Could be true. But then again, the constitution says if the presidential term limits are extended, the incumbent can't benefit from such an extension. So the question now becomes, is the PF also planning to use the 2/3 majority to do away with that particular clause? These are the times that I miss Dr. Magaisa because he would have explained all of this. Then there are those that believe that all this is happening because the CCC dared to embarrass the president by boycotting the opening of parliament. It's easy to subscribe to this theory even though there is very little evidence to support it. I mean, everything we know about the president tells us that he's a easygoing guy. He likes to joke, likes to sing and dance. Very, 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 very forgiving. I don't even know where do people get this stuff. But guys, this is ZANU-PF we're dealing with. There is absolutely nothing that says it has to be one reason. They have no rule book to their chaos. For all we know, it's a combination of different reasons. Or better yet, there is no reason. They could just be doing this simply because they can. Cheap punishment plus good move. You can't put it past the people that we're dealing with. But regardless of the reasons, one thing is for certain. The core business of Parliament, the business of making laws, has been suspended once again. We are back to being led via statutory instruments. Under normal circumstances, this is how Parliament is meant to function. A bill is tabled, then it is debated. The legislators then vote on the bill. If the bill passes the vote, then it is sent up to the president for assent. And once the president signs, the bill turns into law. This process was deliberately designed to ensure that there is a robust exchange of ideas, such that the principles carried in the law are aligned with what is best for Zimbabwe and the people of Zimbabwe. On the other side of that process, we have statutory instruments. These are classified as delegated legislation. A minister is given powers by Parliament so that they can be able to draft laws to deal with issues which may need a quick legal response that cannot wait for the recommended lawmaking process. It's like when a fuse gets damaged inside a plug, and instead of getting a new one, you just directly run the naked wires into the socket. It might work. But you can't run an entire household like that. In the midst of all this chaos in Parliament, a statutory instrument establishing the Mutapa Fund popped up. In theory, the fund is supposed to save Zimbabweans by generating resources which can help the country function better in the future. Naturally, a decision like that is meant to be debated, but no. We woke up to a statutory instrument which absolved all the companies under the Mutapa Fund from subjecting themselves to procurement processes. Parliament is designed for oversight, and there is no way that would have sailed just for just. In effect, our Parliament has been sidestepped, with key laws now being made by the executive through statutory instruments. This recent chaos in Parliament just further illustrates how the concept of separation of powers only exists in theory in our republic. The Speaker of Parliament, Jacob Mudenda, is a ZANU-PF Politburo member, where he serves as the Secretary for Legal Affairs. This means in another structure, he is a direct subordinate of the president. You want to tell me that's the guy we are trying to trust with this process of oversight? The same applies to Mebush Nomona. She leads Senate. She is also a ZANU-PF Politburo member. How do we ensure that there is genuine separation between party and state? How do we make sure that whenever we have an instance where party ideology clashes with what is best for Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe actually wins? These are the things that I want debated in Parliament. Our Parliament has been known for everything but making laws. Everyone remembers the time when Roy Bennett punched Chinamasa in Parliament. Everyone remembers the time Robert Mugabe read the wrong speech in Parliament. Everyone remembers the time Themba Mliswa said, "Chaora chinhu" in Parliament. Everyone remembers all the times that opposition MPs have been beaten and dragged out of Parliament by the police. Everyone knows Parliament is where you go to catch a nice power nap. Can you tell me a time when you felt proud while watching a parliamentary session? Because you felt represented. And no, you can't say Joseph Shinotemba. He was funny, but not in a productive way. You also can't say November 2017 because that was not really a plan that came from the parliament, was it? I need you to tell me a time when our parliament passed a law that we all agreed was for the greater good of Zimbabwe. I'll wait. Sengezo Chabangu says he is unhappy with the manner in which the candidate selection process was done. He alleges that there was an imposition of strangers as candidates in Matabeleland. But it doesn't matter what his reason is. He's wrong. Mr. Chabangu, you're wrong. You are holding over 16 million Zimbabwean lives hostage with these antics. Because instead of allowing legislators who were voted for by thousands of people in Matabeleland to get on with the business of advocating for their respective constituents, they have to spend time and money they don't have fighting you in court to prove their legitimacy. It's the people who lose. But wait a minute. If these candidates were as illegitimate as you claim, then why didn't the people of Matabeleland just reject them at the polls? The absurdity of Mr. Chabangu's recalls may struggle to withstand the test of a competent court of law. In October 2021, Justice Mafusire revoked the recall of 6 MPs who had been recalled by Benjamin Rukanda, who purported to be the PDP Secretary General. This was challenged in court, and Rukanda failed to prove where he had got the role of Secretary General, nor the mandate to do the recalls. The circumstances are almost identical. It will be very interesting to see how the courts deal with this one. But as soon as the MPs get back to Parliament, as I fully expect them to do, they need to take a very good look at this recall clause. Because they need to take a very good look at this recall clause and possibly amend it, because in its current state, it has way too many loopholes. It should be impossible for randoms like Chabangu to claim roles that allow them to have the audience of the Speaker of Parliament. Elections are very expensive and our country is very broke. We need to put a stop to this perpetual election mode that we're always in. We need to get back to the business of reviving the country. There's not a PF MPs that are looking at all this chaos and smiling, possibly even laughing because they think they are immune. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. Because if your birth certificate doesn't have that very long surname and your totem is one of those funny totems, you might have to think twice, because there is honestly no guaranteeing who ends up where once this succession battle is done. I and many like me just want our country back. No one should be writing condolence messages to 25-year-olds because of things that can be fixed with the stroke of a pen. No one. If the business of Parliament is too much for you, then step aside. We'll handle it ourselves. This has been another episode of Propaganda with Kandoro. I'll see you guys next week.